Good afternoon. I'm Janice Marie Johnson, the commissioned lay minister here at Community Church, and I welcome you on behalf of our ministerial team, our staff, and all our lay leaders. It is good to be together, both in person and online. Community Church is a multiracial, multicultural, multi-generational congregation with a vision and commitment to build a world grounded in equity and inclusion. With me today is Jerry Brown, our Director of Music, Darnell White, our musician in residence, our talented choir, and the Omega Dance Company, who worship with us once a month, and our senior minister, Reverend Peggy Clark. So today is a special service. So we're also thrilled to have with us Reverend Audette Fulbright, the Associate Minister at All Souls, New York, Reverend Mary Katherine Morn, the President of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, and the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick-Gray, the President of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Community Church is in transition. We've sold our church building and we are in the process of finding another in this neighborhood. In the meantime, we are guests here at the Church of the Incarnation, for which we are grateful, even if this beautiful space isn't perfectly reflective of our theology. Children are always welcome during worship. Feel free to move about the space or join children's programming happening in the loft. The sound of babies crying or children fidgeting is a beautiful part of being in community. Masks are optional. We ask that everyone be respectful of each other's decisions and need for personal space. Today's service is called One People, One Planet, and our opening song is Sif Amandla, number 172.
Hello. Look at all of you beautiful people. It's great to have you here for this very special day. As Janice has mentioned, this is a special service, and Community Church is, well, we are beside ourselves with glee. Let's begin with our call to worship. It is good to be together. It is good to be together on a sunny, warm day. It is good to be together on a cold, rainy day. It's good to take the time to remember who we are, to feel our bodies in a space, to share this space with other bodies, to see the beautiful in each other's faces as they see the beautiful in our faces. It's good to have a place to bring our whole selves, including our broken hearts, knowing all of who we are will be held in gentleness. It is good to be together on this special day, a whole people of one shared faith. It is good to be together to worship with all of you. We are going to light our chalice. The way we do this with Omega is we do this both in body and in song and in words. And so Becky is going to walk us through the embodied part.
Good afternoon. My name is Becky Reuter, and I am one of the co-directors of Omega Dance Company. We are so happy to be back with you today to worship and to lead you in the chalice lighting gestures. So our text is, "Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, comfort, and joy." On the first phrase, we are going to use our right arm to rise up like the flame. Rise up, O flame. And on the second phrase, the same thing with the other arm. By thy light glowing. Show to us, we're going to bring the hands down to our shoulders, into ourselves, our hearts, our full beings. Show to us beauty. We come up and we extend that beauty out to the universe. Comfort and joy, we bring it down and extend it to everyone here with us in this space and online. So again, we start with our right arm. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, comfort, and joy. We invite you to stand as we sing and move together. Thank you.
We light this candle, the flame of our heritage. May it ignite hope in our lives, in our community, and in the world. Our unison affirmation, please join with me. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth in freedom, justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons one beloved community, unto this church and unto all its members, known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and hearts.
Good morning. We are gathered today on the unceded land of the Lenape peoples. We acknowledge the Lenape community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment to dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. And now, as we are many communities together, people coming to this place from other congregations in the city, many traveling from afar, we want to take a moment to remember we are one people on one planet. And so if you will, please just take a moment and say hello to your neighbor, greet someone, maybe make a new friend. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, Community Church of New York. It is wonderful to be with you. It is a blessing to be together today. I am the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick-Gray, president of your Unitarian Universalist Association. I'm honored to be joined by the Reverend Mary Katherine Morn, who is the president of our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, leading our values globally around human rights. Today we have an offering for all of you. In gratitude and recognition of the unwavering commitment to peace and justice that has been an inspiration for the local community, Unitarian Universalists around the country, and global partners since your founding, the UUA and the UUSC honor the Community Church of New York for answering the call of peace and justice without hesitation, working alongside community and global groups to transform the world.
We are grateful to be among your partners. We commend the commitment of the Community Church of New York to bringing our UU values to the global community through decades of ongoing support for the Unitarian Universalist Office at the United Nations, from its founding and into its future. We celebrate your work on countless justice issues, including civil rights and racial justice, international peace, global refugee support, support to unhoused populations, environmental justice for a planet transformed by our care.
On this, the 26th day of March 2023, we present to you, the Community Church of New York, this honorary award, Tending the Flame of Justice. And it is presented by all of us at the UUA and the UUSC. I'm kind of stunned, and you should all know I didn't know this. We will display this in every place where we go, traveling, bringing with us our commitment to justice, to peace, to human rights, and to the partnerships we have both locally and nationally and in Unitarian Universalism, because without these two powerhouse women, this work would have ceased. So, thank you, thank you, thank you.
peace, pax, pais, pace, shalom, salam, shanti, shalom, salam, shanti, peace, peace, peace. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each one who feels as one with thee know they are also one with every other.
That was beautiful. Our first reading today is called For When People Ask by Rosemary. I want a word that means okay and not okay. A word that means devastated and stunned with joy. I want the word that says, I feel it all at once. The heart is not like a songbird singing only one note at a time, more like a Tuvan throat singer able to sing both a drone and simultaneously 2 or 3 harmonics high above it. A sound that gives the impression of wind swirling among rocks. The heart understands the swirl, how the churning of opposite feelings weaves through us like an insistent breeze, leads us wordlessly deeper into ourselves, blesses us with paradox, so we might walk more openly into this world so rife with devastation, this world so ripe with joy.
Over half a century ago, Unitarian Universalist minister A. Powell Davies, wrestling with the enormity of the challenges of his day, the world crumbling and needing renewing all at the same moment, wrote these words: "The world we knew is passing. All things grow strange. All but the stout heart's courage, all but the undiminished luster of an ancient dream, which we shall dream again as others have dreamed before us, pilgrims forever of a world forever new. And what we loved and lost, we lose to find how great a thing is loving, and the power of it to make a dream come true. For us, there is no haven or refuge. For us, there is the wilderness, wild and trackless, where we shall build a road and sing a song. But after us, there is the promised land, strong from our sorrows and shining from our joys, our gift to those who follow us along the road we build, singing our song."
What a joy it is to be here this morning, this afternoon, with all of you here at Community Church and those online. It is a gift to be together. And I want to thank Reverend Peggy Clark for her hospitality and warmth, and for the beautiful music and gifts of your staff and singers, and for the dancers. What a wonderful service to be a part of. I also just want to offer a very special recognition to my dear colleague, Dr. Janice Marie Johnson, who I have the great pleasure of working with at the UUA. Dr. Janice is part of our senior staff at the UUA, so I'm grateful to lead worship with you and for all the gifts you bring to our wider faith. The world we knew is passing. All things grow strange. These words from Unitarian minister A. Powell Davies have been a refrain in my mind and my spirit as we witness so much change and loss, so much upheaval and uncertainty in our world. We are truly living in liminal times. The word liminal means a time in between, when the world can seem turned upside down, when what has been is no longer, and what is next is not yet clear. We are living in a time when so many expectations and assumptions have crumbled under the weight of massive change, of systemic oppression, and of the need and the longing for renewal and reimagination. The COVID-19 pandemic is one of the realities that brought so much change. Like a wave, it moved across our globe and through the particularities of so many communities and families, touched all of our lives in dramatic and heartbreaking ways. And it made clear how deeply interconnected humanity is. It also brought into sharp relief the devastating costs in human lives of systemic racism, inequity, and poverty in the US, and the failures of our health and social systems that left behind the most vulnerable. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, whose theology commits us to a vision of collective salvation, collective liberation, it was devastating to witness a moment when our world needed to come together in sacrificial collaboration and transparency to save lives, but too often doubled down on misinformation, on nationalism, xenophobia, fear, and materialism. It didn't have to be that way. And yet, in many ways, it did have to be that way, because it was a reflection of so many ways that our world has not changed enough. The world we knew is passing. All things grow strange. These words came to me as I stood arm in arm with other faith leaders in Charlottesville, Virginia. When the police pulled back, stood down, while white supremacists carrying Nazi flags and tiki torches and shields and bats and helmets terrorized that community. They threatened a local synagogue and a church. They attacked students, faith leaders, counter-protesters, and in the end killed Heather Heyer. It wasn't the violent white supremacists that shocked me that day. I was prepared for that. I had confronted that before many times in the streets in Arizona. It was the inaction and complicity of the police. And it was the stark contrast of what happened in Charlottesville compared to the brutal militarized police force that occupied the streets in my hometown of St. Louis and Ferguson, Missouri, in the days and the weeks and the months after the police killed Michael Brown. And a reality of police violence and brutalization of nonviolent protesters that has repeated itself across American cities, from Portland to Standing Rock to Minneapolis, and the many thousands of people that have been killed by police, disproportionately Black and brown people, that have happened since Michael Brown's murder. It's why our spring seminar next weekend in Minneapolis, the spring seminar has often been hosted by Community Church. This year it is being hosted in Minneapolis. It's a partnership between the UUA and the UUSC and the UU College of Social Justice, which is a joint project between our organizations. It is focused on demilitarization and abolition, resisting militarization and empire. Now, I know this topic isn't light or easy, but we have to take seriously and clearly what is happening in our country and our world to counteract the very real threat of anti-democratic Christian nationalist fascist movements in the US and around the world. And I'm using that term fascist not lightly. I use it specifically to describe the far-right ideology committed to authoritarianism and which uses the scapegoating and dehumanization of marginalized groups like religious minorities, immigrants, people of color, LGBTQIA people, and our trans children to suppress opposition, undermine democracy, and consolidate power. It is brutal and violent, and it always leads to more violence and death. Now, these movements are not new to the United States. It's important to be honest about that as well. We must recognize the role, but we must also recognize the particularities of this moment and the role that our deep and long-standing investment in criminalization and the militarization of our police, how significant that threat is as we try to confront these anti-democratic forces. Right? And we saw that in Standing Rock, Minneapolis, Missouri, as well as its complicity with white supremacy in Charlottesville. You know, I've never been able to find, and I have looked, I've never been able to find when exactly A. Powell Davies wrote those words. The world we knew is passing, all things grow strange. I've wondered whether he wrote them in the wake of the discovery and the news stories of Nazi sympathizers and informants in the US government, in our Congress. Is that when he wrote those words? Or did he write them during World War II, as he and so many grappled with the horrific reality of the Holocaust, a reckoning with humanity's capacity for evil and genocide? Did he write them even earlier, in the 20s, when white mobs terrorized and destroyed black communities from Arizona to Texas to Tulsa to DC? Did he write them as a response to McCarthyism, watching the US government criminalize and execute political dissidents? No, these things have always been a part of our world. But when did he experience the scales falling from his eyes? Have there been moments in these days when you have experienced or maybe re-experienced scales falling from your eyes? I also just want to name that I see all of you here at Community Church with your legacy, your historic and rooted and deep commitment to justice and equity and global partnership and commitment across the world. I see you in your own experience of liminality, where what has been is no longer, and what is next is not yet here. Finding your way in between letting go of your church building and listening for the ways you are called continually to embody leadership, our UU values in New York City, in the world, and in our larger community. I see you in this liminal space as well. So what do we do when what we knew or what we thought we knew, right? What we thought we knew is passing. Davies calls us to tend to the dreams and imagination of our hearts, our ancestors, to remember how loss is a reflection of love, and how love is critical to making our dreams a reality. The power of love, the power of song and story to nurture our beloved community. The world we knew is passing. Perhaps it always is. All things grow strange. And we have an opportunity to welcome this strangeness in a way that invites us to deeper change within ourselves and find the ways that our faith, our values, and our ancient dreams speak to us today. And here is where I want to diverge from Davies' words and problematize things a bit. For they do not hold all the answers we need. A. Powell Davies believed that in the aftermath of World War II, and I specifically want to look at that time period because we're talking about a new partnership with the UUA and the UUSC at the United Nations, and so I'm thinking about the time period of the United Nations. Davies believed in the aftermath of World War II, by necessity, the United States needed to take leadership in the world. And I hear that vision in his closing lines. But after us, there is the promised land, strong from our sorrows and shining from our joys, our gift to those who follow us. On the one hand, these words are beautiful and speak to my spirit, but there is also an exceptionalism woven into them. The United States' preeminence in the world has been accompanied by the exportation of exploitative capitalism, resource extraction, growing inequality, militarism, and just new forms of empire and colonialism. False notions of exceptionalism and supremacy have undergirded it all. So today we are called to reimagine how we live our values in the world as people of faith committed to justice. And to this end, the UUSC and the UUA have been in conversation about how we can be most effective, both domestically and on the global stage. And on the global stage, we are particularly talking about work at the United Nations. And central to our understanding of what is needed is partnership and solidarity. For that is part of the path out of exceptionalism and out of reinventing empire and colonialism. For change that truly leads to liberation is always rooted and led by those most directly impacted. At the UUA, partnership and solidarity to fortify movements is at the foundation of our work with Side with Love. It was at the foundation of our work with UU the Vote, where Unitarian Universalists worked with partners and communities across the country, contacting 3 million voters in 2022. And we are just gearing up for 2024, right? Because this is a fight for a multiracial democracy. And we need to be politically and strategically strong. Partnership is key to this work at UU The Vote, and it is key to the work that is growing now to protect our trans kids, to protect our LGBT members of our community and the wider community, and to protect the rights of women and reproductive justice, including access to abortion. It is also changing our conversation as global Unitarians and Universalists. As we look afresh at our international work, there are Unitarians and Universalists all over the globe, how we do international work that is not centered in the United States and Europe, right? How we are changing a paradigm that has been rooted in the US into a paradigm that is centered in those most deeply impacted by injustice. And that is why we are reimagining with the UUSC how their focus on global partnerships and a commitment to climate justice and human rights is central to effective UU values at the UN. And you are going to hear more about that in a minute.
Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it.
Thank you, Denise, for that reading from Arundhati Roy. Greetings, Community Church of New York. It is really a joy and also an honor to be with you this afternoon at this special service. Thank you so much, Peggy, for the invitation and the warm hospitality. I do have a little bone to pick with you. You told me it was very casual here. I feel it's very fancy this afternoon. So I'm trying to be fancy, taking deep breaths along with the wonderful worship leaders. It's a privilege to be part of this service, and to be with my dear friend and colleague, Susan Frederick-Gray. Thank you, Susan, for your words of power and truth, and I especially want to thank you for the way that you have held us as the president of our UUA through these particular years and this particularly difficult time. Our world, our planet is passing, changing. As the poet reminds us, our world is rife with devastation. In many places near us and around the world, communities have been experiencing the impacts of fascism driven by racism, patriarchy, extractive capitalism, and militarism. And this afternoon, I want to take just a moment to name in particular Burma, also known as Myanmar, where UUSC has been in partnership with the grassroots through democracy movements, the defense of religious minorities and ethnic minorities, and broadly the multi-generational campaigns for human rights there. At UUSC, after more than 20 years of work in partnership in Burma, we're heartened by the United States acknowledgement last year of the genocide, and we continue to support advocacy related to the International Court of Justice action as well. The other place in our world I lift up, because we are all holding it in our hearts, a place, in fact, that has received a great deal more attention than Burma, is Ukraine. The egregious invasion by Russia of Ukraine. Last summer, some of the new partners that UUSC has been working with in Poland and Hungary, working with communities that are being displaced from Ukraine, some of our partners got together and asked if we might support them in bringing people together. They were seeing burnout and actually people leaving the work because they were so broken and exhausted from the work they had been doing supporting communities impacted, and the communities in particular who haven't been served by the larger, more mainstream humanitarian organizations. So we were most honored to be part of a partnership sponsoring a convening in Krakow, Poland, bringing together more than 25 feminist organizers and activists to, as they said, regroup, recharge, and recenter. We were so grateful for this invitation to be part of bringing the idea of rest as resistance into action. Well, I guess action is a wrong word for that. Rest as resistance, and having the opportunity to fund and help to facilitate this event was a great honor and privilege. Among the group was the executive director of the only LGBTQ organization in Moldova, director and president of an organization working for sexual and reproductive rights for women, Roma organizers and activists, as well as organizations using art and justice for transnational movement building. It was such a privilege for us to support this, and a powerful example of our theory of change at UUSC. Our theory of change, that in relationships of radical trust, where people impacted by justice are leading, that's where change happens. That's where collective liberation is possible. I begin with this story, this image of these feminists gathering in Krakow, resting, regrouping, recentering for two reasons. One, to share just a little picture of the work and how UUSC understands the importance of partnerships. But also I share this because this is really what we're doing right now. Within the container of faith community, we gather to rest from the relentless, pounding, sometimes real, sometimes manufactured demands of our days. We stop. Just for this hour, we are saying that taking time for connection and meaning-making and promise-making matters. In this way, we hold one another in the midst of unthinkable losses. In this way, we find strength and courage and hope and faith for all that is possible when we are engaged in the great work of love, which calls us to justice. I heard you, Peggy, just a few weeks ago refer to this work as putting love at the center of all that we do, reimagining church. This coming week, At the spring seminar, UUs come together, as we have for many years under the leadership of the UU office at the UN, committed to global engagement and to learning and practicing the skills that make it possible for us to take action locally to address global issues. Because we are one people, sharing one planet. Because this is our one world. And as the poet Rosemary Watola Tromer said so beautifully in the reading Peggy shared, this is our world, rife with devastation and ripe with joy, and I would add possibility. The possibility is often deeply obscured. Can I get an amen? In the blur of some new outrage, some new image of our world, rife with devastation. So Arundhati Roy asks if in these liminal times, she asks us, in these liminal times, can we walk through the portal lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine a new world, ready to fight for it? Can we? Yes, I think so too. It's an act of faith to imagine, to reimagine. And by faith, I mean that meaning-making, promise-making business of living into our deeply held and cherished values. And I mean refusing to give in to empire's propaganda about power. Remember this, friends. When you are tempted by cynicism and despair, our cynicism and perception of powerlessness is exactly what empire is depending on, precisely how empire survives. Faithful imagination is, in Adrienne Marie Brown's words, looking further ahead. It is a practice that weaves connection and power, partnership and solidarity. And as Susan said, this is the way forward. I want to say power again because I think this is where we often lose faith, stumble, falter. And I've learned this in a new way since I've been at UUSC. Honestly, I actually had to be hit over the head with it a little bit there. For my first year at UUSC, I misread our mission statement, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person as we dismantle oppressions. Well, that is not actually what it says. At UUSC, our mission statement affirms the inherent dignity and power of all people. All people. Nowhere in my years of ministry have I witnessed more powerful expressions of faithful imagination than in UUSC grassroots partners. Nowhere have I seen faithful imagination practice weaving connection and power into real change in our world. And I close with the story of UUSC partner Pacific Island students fighting climate change. In 2019, in a law school classroom in the Solomon Islands, a campaign was hatched and launched. The community gathered there in that classroom decided that they wanted to move forward a project to demand that the United Nations International Court of Justice issue an advisory opinion acknowledging that climate change is a human rights issue. They said they wanted to bring the world's biggest problem to the world's highest court. It is such a clever and strategic campaign, calling on the United Nations to say what is obvious, that the climate crisis is creating an expanding human rights crisis. And by so doing, by the International Court of Justice acknowledging this, creating a framework of accountability, acknowledging the human rights impacts of climate change and the responsibility of our global community to acknowledge the importance of intergenerational equity. In 2019, later in 2019, through an early grant from UUSC, some of the students from the Pacific Island Students Fighting Climate Change were able to travel to Madrid for the COP, the Conference of Partners, and there they were able to make connections and spread word about their project and their vision. And they took a small grant from UUSC and turned it into partnerships with 350.org, Greenpeace, Amnesty International, and friends, next week, the United Nations will vote on a resolution co-sponsored by 117 nations, signed on by 26 of 27 countries in the European Union who have already committed to advance this work and call for this advisory opinion. UUSC, I really wish that you could hear this story from them. It's so powerful to see their vision and these young adults, their commitment and their power. I'm sorry you can't see them. This week, UUSC has, in partnership with the Pacific Island students, authored a sign-on letter. We are grateful to be in partnership with the UUA and other organizations, actually calling for the United States to sign on to advance this work as well. So if you are a faith leader, please join us. You can find the letter on our website. And if you know a faith leader, I hope you might invite them to also sign on. It was September, is that when Climate Week happens? It was September this past fall when some of us from UUSC had the privilege of being with some of these leaders from the Pacific Island students, helping them facilitate a side event just down the road from here. It was the first time I had personally met the leaders of the organization and seen them at work, and I want to share that the thing that moved me most deeply, well, they came to share their stories, the real devastation they have experienced, the threat of loss that they face, their homes, their livelihoods, their very identities. Powerful storytelling and sharing. And as they shared these stories of devastation, they did it in a room that they had arrived early to, so that they could bring in art and plants and flowers, because for them it was not possible to speak about the work that they were called to, that they are called to, without acknowledging not only the devastation, but also the way our world is ripe with joy and beauty. That was in September. There were a few sign-ons then. Their work has been phenomenal. They call us into partnership. They call us into accountability. At UUSC, we give thanks as well for your partnership here at Community Church, our partnership with the UUA, with our College of Social Justice, and with all of us who are called to walk through this portal lightly and fight for this one world. My friends, we have one world. It is rife with devastation. It is ripe with joy. Amen.
Wow, thank you so much. Ooh. Thank you. And the beat goes on. Life at Community Church is busy, whether we're online or in person. It is our hope that wherever you are, and in whatever way you are comfortable engaging in the mission and ministry of this church, we have provided opportunities for you. On the second Tuesday of April, May, and June, Community Church is partnering with the NGO on Human Rights for a series to include discussions on restorative justice, migration, and Indigenous rights. We'll be at the Church Center across from the United Nations and online. In a long list of speakers on the front line and folks doing this work for a long time, we will also be joined by the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We hope that you will join us. On Tuesday, April 4th, also at the Church Center, there'll be a critical discussion on the state of Uyghurs in China. As always, you are welcome to join us or to watch the live stream through our website. On April 16th, we're hosting a family crafting salon. It will be noisy, be free, it will be a no perfection zone, a learning space, and all are welcome. So starting next Sunday, there'll be a bin in the back where we're collecting old clothing and fabric to be used in our projects. Please donate if you're able. We are a 7-day church and have programs running every day of the week. You can find more information in the program and on our website. Now our ushers are going to pass a plate for our collection. All gifts offered are accepted in gratitude.
This has been a beautiful service. I am very grateful to Reverend Susan and Reverend Mary Catherine and to Reverend Audette from All Souls, with whom Community Church has been partnering for a long time, supporting the United Nations in our work. So we're going to extinguish our chalice. The chalice extinguishing is in your program. If we would say the words with me. Knowing how quickly the flame of truth may be extinguished, how easily the chalice of fellowship broken, let us be vigilant in faith, keep peace in our hearts, and make care for one another the watchword of our lives together. So our light goes out everywhere into the world. Our light goes out everywhere into the world where healing and hope are needed. Let us go in peace to love and serve the world and one another. It was good to be with you all today.